I pushed it. We are live.
This is the first live stream on my channel for quite some time.
I'm excited.
I am too.
I used to be a frequent flyer on the freelance channel, but it's been a long time.
I know, man. I used to do live streams all the time. Well, part of it, my connection has been a little bit of an issue.
Yeah. I don't see it on your channel yet. Is it
What's up, Mr. Lee? Well, we already got something popping in, so it must be.
Huh. Okay. Is it not? It's on yours for sure.
Mr. Lee, whose channel are you on right now?
Are we? Where are we?
What YouTube channel are you watching right now? Because you know better than we do.
Oh, I got a notification. We're live.
Okay.
So
we're actually on Freelance Duck Hunting channel.
Yes, we are. It's interesting because we do.
Oh, Danny. That's content. No.
We do live streams all the time, right? But we jump over to your channel and there's like a sector of people we don't see on the Duck Hunt podcast. But there must be frequent commenters on your videos.
Yeah, because normally when we're on your channel, it's pretty much the first 5 or 6 that pop in
are regulars.
Kind of the same, yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and start sharing some links real quick before we get rolling into the podcast.
Are you going to hit the Facebook ones, or you want me to do that?
I don't know. I figured like we were reversed roles, but
yeah, go for it, man. I'll sit.
Yeah, you continue. You can just keep the people going.
Yeah, we already got 19 in here. Thanks, guys. Man, we have not done a live stream for quite some time on my channel. And if you guys don't know, this is a recording of the Duck Gun podcast. Jordan and I have been doing the Duck Gun podcast for, good Lord. We have not hit 2 full 12-month cycles, have we?
In January, that would be
okay.
Right.
So in January, it'll be 24 months. It'll be our 2-year anniversary.
Crazy.
So, yeah. We've put out 150 episodes on iTunes, all of your podcast outlets. If you're ever driving in your car and you want to listen to some waterfowl content, find Duck Gun Podcast with Jordan and I. Today we're going to be talking about kayak hunting and layout boat hunting. So we're going to really hit the specifics of if you've been thinking about getting a kayak or a layout boat or one versus the other. There's a difference between the two. Everything. We're going to go into everything on that topic. So it should be pretty interesting. Also, if you have questions that you want answered, I'd be cool with hitting up those questions, but it probably won't be to the very end. So if we have time, depending on how long we go, if we have time, we will get to some of your questions. The questions wouldn't be on the actual podcast segment that goes on iTunes and such. It would be on just this live stream. So we'll talk and let you guys filter in, and then we'll start the actual podcast itself, run through the content, and then at the end, if we have time, we'll hit up some questions. So I can promise you for certain, if you put a question down with the super chat, you will absolutely get the question answered. So feel free to do that. Jordan and I have big plans and big announcements coming up soon, I'll tell you. He and I have a merger going on of some stuff. And we're not merging our YouTube channel. That's not happening. I think he's gonna merge our TikTok channel. Right, Jordan?
Oh yeah.
No, not that either. But anyway, we've got some big news coming up in the weeks to come. So, and do we have some plans for increasing the value of your waterfowl hunting experience? So that'll be coming up soon. So,
awesome.
Anyway, love having you guys around.
Oh yeah. I got all the links shared, so I guess we can Oh, it's holding pretty steady right here. Everybody jumped in pretty quick.
Yeah, that was great. Hopefully we'll have some more filtering in. Richard's there. Bobby, what's up, Bobby? Bobby's definitely a frequent flyer. Colin, the Alaska Viking.
Yeah.
I would say Mr. Lee because I'm not sure. How do you pronounce that name?
Tao.
T-O-U Lee. Tao.
I don't, that's a guess. Just a guess. But it sounds right to me.
Yep. And Magnolia Kayaks versus Mud Boats, kind of. Or you can. We will definitely talk a little bit on the difference between the two. And I personally, my whole crew switched from layout boats or your traditional mud boats to layout boats to kayaks. So I'll definitely talk about why we made that decision. But more than anything, it's going to be the use of kayaks and or layout boats. But we'll definitely hit on why my crew made the switch 3 or 4 years ago from traditional layout boats over to kayaks, which is a great switch. I would never advise anyone to. Well, there's only one setting in which I would advise someone to get a layout boat over a kayak, but there is one instance in which that I would do that.
And we're going to get to that in the podcast then?
Yeah, we'll get to that in the podcast.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess let's go ahead and jump into recording it. Good with you, Elliot? You got anything else before you want to jump into it?
Nope. That's it. Let's roll it out.
All righty. Go ahead and play the intro. I think it's a 100% chance that I always hit the wrong one.
And about an 85% chance that you'll butcher the name freelance duck hunting. Don't know why that's so difficult.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan Fromer. I believe in hunting hard, hunting smart, and having a fun time while doing it. And shooting limits, well, that's just the icing on the cake. I revel in the journey just as much as the successes it brings. From ducks to dogs to decoys and guns, we'll be talking tactics, strategies, and what it takes to get the job done. Load up and take aim. This is the Duck Gun Podcast.
What's going on, folks? Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Duck Gun Podcast. I'm Jordan from Duck Gun Chronicles, and I got my gray-bearded co-host, who's always making fun of me for butchering his name, Freelance Elliot from Freelance Duck Hunting. How you doing tonight, Elliot?
You did it again. You did it again. You messed it up. It's all right.
Hey, that wasn't that bad.
Well, listen. I was listening to a podcast. Have you ever heard of the podcast Revisionist History?
No.
It's a fantastic podcast. And they have all sorts of. Well, one whole episode was about when you're trying to speak and you misspeak on the same things over and over again. There's actually hidden meaning to it. and they talk in depth about Elvis and how Elvis, during a particular song, always when he sang the song messed up this line. And they had psychologists on and they were talking about it and everything. So I'm starting to think there must be something to you're trying to say Elliot from Freelance Duck Hunting.
I don't know, because I'm not thinking about anything. So
no, it's a subconscious thing. It's almost like a Freudian. It's like a Freudian slip, but not exactly the same. But basically, a Freudian slip is when you say something that you subconsciously mean, but you don't think you mean it. You know.
Well, little known fact. I actually had a pretty bad speaking problem when I was a kid. To the point where my parents thought I was deaf.
Oh man.
I mean, not to that point, but I went to a listening, specialist and to test my hearing, and my parents were always telling me enunciate, right? So, and I think I told you about this before. So public school, going in, I was homeschooled, and then going into public school and then doing speech class, I was terrified to do speech class. And I did.
And now you have a podcast.
And now, now I
Wow.
talk every week, all the time, to people all the time. So, I might slip up on your name every once in a while, but I'll take that.
Yeah, I think you need to go around to public schools and give inspirational lectures and speech classes.
I don't know about that.
I was once like you, my children, and now look at my success as a waterfowl podcaster.
I once was a nose picker too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
So did you see the Georgie vlog 9?
I did.
Any thoughts or before I make him give me false praise about it on the spot? I just put out a video of Georgie vlog 9 where I got pigeons for Georgie, and I did over a 3-day period. I did some recording of the work I did with her, and just put out a video of that. So, all right.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask me, because you like to ask me in the podcast. Did you watch my video? And it's like, yes, Elliot, I watched all your videos. But yeah.
Well, I'm curious what your feedback was, good or bad. Like, just like I said on the video, like pros, cons.
No, I thought it was interesting to watch, like her reaction to the first bird, kind of just chasing around and barking at it, and she didn't know what to do, right? And so, I think that's common a lot of times, but that's why you do the live bird before you get out to the hunt. And by the end of it, she's like, oh yeah, I got this. You know, I don't know. I think you're kind of talking about her killing the pigeons a little bit too, and I mean, I don't think that's really anything to like worry about, because
yeah, those pigeons died. Like 2 of them died on the first retrieve. It's just like, I mean, she breathed on them and they died, and it was crazy. I could not believe how quickly those things passed away. I'll tell you, I was absolutely a little discouraged after day 1, because in my mind, I thought she was just going to be this killer, you know, that just like ran out there and just nailed it. And she wasn't afraid, but she was certainly like, what is this? And I was surprised about that. And so I went I was like, okay, should I contact Chris Jobman and ask him? But I'm like, Chris Jobman is like I know how busy he is. And so I feel like I have like these certain number of like help me cards. Like I'm playing a game and I've got like call Chris Jobman for help, and I've got like 5 of them, right?
Yeah.
So I went to the retrievertraining.com, and it was like even Freddie King commenters like, oh, this is normal, especially in a dog at that age. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I did notice about myself. I noticed that I'd say the biggest benefit of this for me is that I got to watch myself, because I had 35 minutes of recording and I shrank it down to 9. And so I got to watch a lot of my personal training. It was so good for me, because one thing that I noticed is my body language is a little too anxious, and I like bark out commands like, sit here, sit, you know, it's like I'll give her 3 separate commands within a 10-second period or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, dude, relax.
Yeah.
Yeah, relax.
I've been the same way with Chief, and you definitely, it's like you have to relax. But I mean, you can tell that like from that you're like, you are a little anxious, right? So you want everything to be perfect and right. But man, I'm telling you, she's, for a self-trained dog, like amateur. Obviously, neither one of us are professional. I mean, you've done really good and have her really far along. So,
yeah.
I mean, even like the fact that you paid $40 and have pigeons, you know, that's beyond what most people do. So, I don't think there's. Yeah, I think, you know, it's just all good on that stuff. That's all good stuff.
I will say she's farther now than I expected her to be. She's to the level with, I haven't even, since the last video, with hand signals and whistle sit, that, I mean, I'm doing the full T drills where I'm putting bumpers in different spots and sending her out and then making her go to exactly what I want. And I mean, this pandemic has been pro Elliot training Georgie, I'll tell you, because I got lots of time on my hands. So I'm normally doing 2-a-days almost every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, with all the modern day help where I can text Chris Jobman, I know that's a benefit to me that most people don't have that access, but like retrievertrainer.com, you know, it's like I can go on there, post something, and not only do I have all the members, but like frequently Freddie King chimes in, you know, and it's like, it's compared to when my dad was in the bulk of training his dogs, like pre-internet, you have so many tools at your disposal that you didn't have before. If you're willing to put in the time and you're willing to really listen to the advice you're getting, there's no reason that you can't get a dog, you know, really, really far. You know, so I'm so excited where she's at. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. No, definitely kudos to you on that. I can't wait to, I've said this before, but I can't wait to see her in season. I think it's going to be really cool watching those videos, you know, first hunt and all that. And, you know, I say this all the time about Chief on my channel. I'm like, man, I think people are more of a fan of Chief than me. And You know, I think Georgie's going to be your main character this year in your videos.
I think so too. I was actually just before you and I got on, I was watching one of your videos and doing a review video on it. For those of you who don't know, Jordan and I are members of the Flyways Collective, and we've got this. I'm so excited about this. We all the members are taking a video from each and every other member and doing a reaction video to it, where our pictures are down in the corner and we're watching the other person's video. And so I was reviewing yours today. And that's one comment I made. Chief was going after some retrieve. I was like, if you don't know who Chief is, you don't watch Duck Gun Chronicles, because Chief is a huge part of your channel, just like Izzy was for mine. And I think that's my videos have been lacking that lack of dogs the past year or so. But certainly Chief is like, you think of Duck Gun Chronicles, everyone's like, oh yeah, Chief, you know.
Oh yeah. When I go to like the expos and stuff, I mean, people come up and talk about Chief all the time, and it's just crazy to hear that and people knowing who Chief is. And even like with this starting up TikTok and kind of going like, it's almost like you know who your followers are on like certain social medias and like YouTube. But then I have these random people that their names aren't familiar and all that, and they come up and they just say, you know, in the comments, oh, there's Chief or whatever. You know, it's like it's just kind of crazy. He's like a dog celebrity.
Yeah, I know. I had a comment. Someone put a comment on, I think it was a Georgie blog video. There's some lady, and she was like, man, I hope that Georgie always has her head on your shoulder like Izzy did. And I'm thinking, I don't really remember putting that in the video. Every time I'm in the car and Izzy rides with me, even from the back seat, she lays her head up on my shoulder. And I'm thinking, I had no idea that was even like something that was in my videos, you know, and this lady is like remembering it and thinking how she liked it. It's just pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. No, as hunters and having our dogs, like we know they're special, and like we all like the thing, you know, there's the one I don't know what you want to call it. It's not an inspirational quote, but like it's not a meme either. I can't think of the right words for it, but the phrase goes, it's like wow, now I'm gonna butcher all this, but like a dog is just part of your life, but you're all of a dog's life. And like, we want like our hunting dogs to be, like remembered, you know, by us and the stories we tell. And it's really cool to be able to share that with everybody else and they remember them, you know? And it's just, I don't know, just seeing those type of comments and all that kind of stuff definitely adds into it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess what I've been up to here this last week is I'm still working on, I feel like I'm taking forever on this stuff, but I'm working on still getting my garage organized. And I did a video a few weeks back of organizing everything up to one side of the garage, got everything out of there. And then I'm kind of restructuring it, but I built a shelf. I got Chief's dog box made. So right now all I got to do is like clean up in there and finish kind of putting everything in its place. And then I'll go ahead and push out a video for everybody to see the finish of the dog kennel and the finish of the garage build. So definitely, I'm ready to get that done. It just, honestly, it was a lot of building too. So it has took a lot of time. That's been my major projects this summer.
Yeah, because, you know, you're building your podcast, your YouTube, your Instagram, your TikTok. Do you ever sit down and say hi to your wife?
I do, yes.
She is one tolerant, cool chick. Because I haven't worked since early March with the pandemic. So I mean, I've got plenty of time to be unproductive at my ventures and spend time with my wife. But I mean, you're still working full time and getting all that stuff done.
Yeah, she's definitely supportive. I mean, we talk about, you know, dreams and aspirations with all this, and, you know, definitely pushing to, you know, do big things, do cool things, and, you know, make awesome content. And I mean, I definitely couldn't ask for a partner that's more supportive. You know, my wife's definitely awesome on that. But I can tell you, man, today's schedule has been like, you know, you're talking about it, like all the things I got to do. It's just been a grind, you know. Start the day, go to work. And I've been doing this. I come home every day and I take an hour lunch because I live 3 minutes away from my job. So it helps break it up. But I literally, just come home, eat as fast as I can, and I get to work on my personal stuff, whether it's like boxing up hats to ship off, or whatever it is, like filming a TikTok video, or sometimes I film a YouTube video if I'm doing like a how-to or editing or putting up the podcast, whatever it is. But I do that at lunch and get after it that way. And then after that, you go back to work, and then I came back home. I shot off a live stream on TikTok because I hit my 10K, and I wanted to jump on there to do a little 10K live stream. Then I had to go back out, pick up my kid from daycare, come back here, unload the groceries with my wife. Then we ate supper real quick. Actually, I didn't eat supper. I came down here to get everything ready for all the stuff we talked about, Elliot. And so we had all our meetings, and everything, like the big plans we're talking about. You guys will hear more about it here soon. And then now here we are live streaming, recording the podcast. So it's nonstop sometimes.
It is. I mean, you and I have been just working on our own ventures for the last 3 hours.
Yeah.
You and my meeting started 3 hours ago. And geez. Well, I was going to ask you, if you guys haven't listened to Jordan and I put out a podcast a couple weeks ago about how to keep your wife happy. Did your wife listen to that episode?
Yeah, she watched it live.
What were her thoughts?
I don't know. I guess
she didn't even give you. If she didn't give you any feedback, then there's probably something that she was not happy about.
I was thinking the opposite. Like she would have.
Really?
She would have gave me some feedback if there was something, right?
Okay. See, every wife is different. See, if my wife, if she watches something like that where it's all about keeping wives happy, and then I walk out of the room and there's no comment, then for me that means whereas you, it's totally opposite.
Well, I mean, I think we just said something briefly, but yeah. She probably wouldn't have said anything, but there would have been like a look or a gesture that I would have, would have been able to pick up on, but I didn't pick up on anything. So,
yeah, mine liked the episode. She was happy with it. She thought you made some really good points about love. So anyway, I was curious what your wife's feedback was on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So where are we at in the structure here? So I think this is where we thank our partners for the podcast. So let's jump on into it. All right. So yeah, actually we got 2 more to add this week. And so announcement on that for all of our listeners. We are partnering again with Motion Duck Decoys this year as well. And that's something that me and Elliot used all last year as a product. It's the best solution for getting ripples on the water in a large amount. It's like a jerk rig on steroids. So, yeah, definitely you guys can check them out on motionduckdecoys.com and use the code DuckGun2020, and you'll get a discount and free shipping. So definitely check them out. But if you guys haven't seen the product, I think I need to explain it just a little bit better. Assuming our followers have seen it, but it's just this jerk rig. You hook 7 ducks on it, and it spreads out, and you pull it, and all the ducks have super lifelike motion. Me and Elliot used it all last season and loved it. On to you, Elliot.
Oh, okay. I thought I lost connection for a second. I didn't realize that was a pass off to me. I will say real quickly about that product. It's I would never try this with a jerk rig, but I absolutely on 0 wind days plan on just using the motion spreader and nothing else, and having nothing but motion. I bet you, Jordan, that river hunt we went on, had we done that, we would have been much better off than using a huge spread. But so I'm pumped up. I'm really, really excited about it. So anyway, okay. Moving on I want to talk about HTR, Hunter Innovation. I just saw recently a commercial from them, from some handsome, strapping, bearded guy with a budding mullet, that they've got a new gun stand. And I was unaware of that gun stand. Jordan, I know I'm supposed to talk about it, but can you tell me a little bit more about that double-sided gun stand?
Yeah. So honestly, we kind of talked about it a little bit, and then we kind of nothing happened of it. Well, we went to Game Fair out in Minnesota, and we had a few guys, and they said, "Hey, like, it would be awesome to put gear on both sides of this." And they asked if they could buy 2 trays and swing one around 180 degrees. And so all 3 of them paid handsomely for another tray, and so that they could put gear on both sides of the gun stand. And so from that was born the double tray. And so we actually had it manufactured as one single piece that has a tray on either side that hooks right into the gun stand. So we call it the Gearhead double tray, because you can put everything you need for your hunt on one side: your ammo, your blind bag, your gun, your game strap. And then on the other side, you could put your thermos, you could put, just whatever you want. You can put your lunch on it, So
yeah,
that's what the double tray is.
Now that's the best selling product at HDR, isn't it? The gun stand?
Yep.
Okay. And one thing, when I hunted with you, when you first used that gun stand, you would always use your lanyard and kind of display your ducks during the hunt. I remember that teal hunt, and I was envious. I was like, that looks really cool. Here's my teal, laying off in the water, beside me in the apron, and there's Jordan. But now you can actually get a lanyard to go along with it. There's a clip and you guys are actually giving away lanyards with them for a limited time to go with it. That was a really great innovation as well. So that as you are shooting your ducks, you have your lanyard right there on your gun stand and put them on. So kudos to you for those ideas. Well done.
Awesome. Also, we'd like to give a big thanks out to our second new partner for the podcast this week, Finisher. And if you guys haven't seen Finisher, you guys need to check them out. Adrenaline.com. And the product they have is to finish your birds, as the name calls it, but gone are the days of acting like a Neanderthal and doing the Cajun crunch, or having mistakes on bringing the bird's neck. It's up to us as hunters to humanely finish our birds in a quick and decisive way. None of this like, oh, I need to ring it real quick and then dropping it, and then, oh, I need to ring it again real quick and dropping it. You just use the finisher one time. It slips into the back of their skull, and it scrambles their brain up pretty much with the finisher. And the bird will give it a little twitch, like the same way as if you wring its neck and break the spine. But this way is just the most humane way to finish your bird without any kind of mishaps or any unethical, or kind of maybe not unethical, but it's just the best way to do it in a quickest, fashion.
Most ethical way to dispatch a bird, which is what we want. As hunters, we should care about those lives, and we want them to end as quickly as possible. I know that's a weird sentence to say, but it makes sense to you hunters. I know it does.
Yeah.
And you guys, if you have a dog, you want to protect your dog, and you want to get a gun or kennel. It is not your cheapy little Walmart plastic thing that's going to fall apart after you. You buy one, you're going to have it probably longer than you're alive. You can get a 10% off Duck Gun Space 10, capital D, capital G, USA made product, 5-star crash test, all of those things you know about. This is no joke. Keep your dog safe. Spend that money if you want to transport your dog in a safe way.
Also, we'd like to give a big thanks out to our partners at Bandit Avery Greenhead Gear. They got everything you need for waterfowl, from the clothes to the decoys to dog training gear. They got everything. Elliot and I have been using their stuff all last season and preparing to this season as well. We're definitely pumped to use it. And high quality products for everything. And so we like to give a big thanks out to those guys. Alrighty. And to wrap it up, guys, a couple things I want to say. It helps us a lot when we promote our partners. If you guys will check them out, and when you do use them, and I know a lot of you guys already are using their products, which is awesome to see. But let them know that we send them your way. That'll help us out a ton. And then also, if you want to support us personally, Elliot and I both are running runs of hats right now. Elliot's wearing his right now. He's got the classic coffee and khaki camo hat. And then he's got, or not camo hat, coffee and khaki tan hat. And then he's got the camo hat, both with iconic FDH logo on it. I'm running duck gun hats, leather patch hats as well, and sending out the Oak Nuts decal with all of them. I got one tan left. People are eating those up. So I got plenty of green. I don't know why people aren't liking the green. The green's awesome too. So definitely check those up. You can get both those on the flywayscollective.com. But with that, let's go ahead and jump on into the podcast.
I laugh 100 times out of 100 when you say Oak Nuts. There's not a time that can be uttered that I won't giggle at least a little bit.
It's funny because like I'm so used to saying it that like you know how like words when you've said them enough they stop almost having a meaning besides just you know what I mean like
yeah,
there's just words and then you like break it down, you're like Oak Nuts. Oh yeah, that's what that means.
Oh, I've got poison oak on my testicle.
Which I will tell you, I texted you the other day and said that I had poison ivy and we'll see how long it takes. But I passed the test. I only had it on my like leg and behind my ear. So
dang it. Because the official over and under was 2 times this year, and you're at 0.
I'm trying to stay out of the woods. The woods.
I was taking the over. I took the over for $50.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into the podcast. All right, so topic for tonight, we're going to be talking all about kayak hunting, layout boats, and canoes. Threw that in there, a little curveball for you, Elliot. So we'll mention that a little bit. There's some canoe hunters out there. But yeah.
As I was once one, we started off with canoe.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first point I was going to make. So with all of this, there is definitely a barrier to entry because they cost money. Well, the cheapest thing you can buy is usually a canoe because you can get them used at a garage sale, Facebook Marketplace, wherever. So like barrier to entry, I think that's probably why people use canoes to start with a lot. Like mine, I got mine $200 for a pretty good, solid used canoe. So, you know, that's the barrier to entry. As far as like everything else, I mean, kayaks are super expensive nowadays when you get up to like the crazy ones, you know, big fishing rigs and all that kind of stuff. Because I was going to say that kayaks are probably second, and then layout boats are the most expensive, but they're probably right up there with the nicest kayaks.
It just depends on, you know, I mean, you can get cheap kayaks from Walmart. You can spend $300 in them. I mean, it goes from that to a couple thousand. So it's really, what do you want to use it for and what kind of quality you want to get and what types of places are you going to hunt and are you going to fish in? It's all sorts of variables that go along with your selection in the whole process.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So that's kind of the first thing, you know, I want to talk about on it. And yeah, definitely that, you know, just kind of breaking them down in their different categories. You know, it's like
canoes. Jordan, what do you think would be the cheapest? Let's say you got a 19-year-old who's like, man, I'm on the most limited budget in the world, but I want a little boat. What do you think?
For like a John boat, man, you're still talking like $400 or $500, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to spend at least $500.
Yeah, and then just getting a John boat. Like, I mean, have you ever paddled a John boat with oars?
No, I would never buy it. To me, when I think John boat, I think of a 12-foot death trap.
Yeah.
When I think of a John boat. So, you know, but I will say that if you spend 5 months searching Craigslist and you're willing to drive 2 or 3 hours, you can probably pick up something for $250, $300 used that you might have to do a little sealant on.
Yeah.
Now you might just, I did my first layout boat that I purchased myself. I did that on. I spent like $300. But you have to be diligent in order to do it. But if you have months to spend and you're willing to look at Craigslist like every day or every other day or 3 times a week, that's probably the best route to go as far as.
No, that's exactly what I did too. So I went to Craigslist as well and got just a canoe from Craigslist and patching Elliot back in. Dropped Elliot from the call. Hold on, folks. We'll get him back in here. Just a second, Elliot. You're not coming through.
I can't come to the phone right now.
Oh.
Get back to you.
I got his answer machine. Elliot, the call dropped. He's still talking. He doesn't know he dropped. Elliot, I'm talking to your stream without you. This would be a perfect time to talk some trash. But I won't. So.
What happened?
You dropped the call. So.
Yeah, I don't know, just disappeared.
Yeah. So I was just talking some trash while you're gone, but we're good now.
Hey, okay. Those of you in the comment section, let me know what kind of trash he talked, please.
Yeah. All right. So, like, we'll pick up right back with the Craigslist. So I did the same thing as you did with your layout boat. I got my canoe off Craigslist. It might have been before Facebook Marketplace was a thing. But same thing. I got one for $200. I had to travel 2.5 hours to get mine.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Mine was a 12-foot layout boat. I have no idea the maker. I took a half day off work and went on like a 3.5 hour drive up to Illinois to get it. And I call it Old Green. And I tell you, I had to patch that thing about 16 times, but it's one of the most, I'm very sentimental about it, but I $300 did it. And I've sold little layout boats. In fact, I sold a 10-foot Carson's Puddler, which is not a bad little layout boat for $250 on Craigslist. And so certainly when we're talking barrier to entry, I'd say get on Craigslist.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, I've kind of come a different way, a long way, I guess, in my thoughts on it. When I first got started, I'm like, man, a canoe is better than a kayak because you can take more stuff. And I even made a video about it. And I still think that for certain hunts, it's better because you can take more stuff. But if you're going to, it opens up so many options when you have a kayak. You can lay out and all that. And then the other option is just throwing out a sled behind it, which I'm sure I got that idea from you. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all about what kind of hunting are you trying to do. So, I mean, if you want to hunt out of it and conceal yourself, you don't want a big canoe. The first canoe we used was like a 16. It was a cargo canoe. It was massive. It was a Coleman thing, and we were actually going across big reservoirs in it. It was just built. It was built like that. But for what we're doing now, it would be terrible. It was terrible. So it's all about what are you going to be doing, and which one of the three is going to better suit your needs. And I can tell you with the right now I'm running a Ascend H12 and I have a Old Town Sportsman 119, which is a little bit smaller and skinnier. But with that H12 and a sled, that's as much gear as I would want to take if it's just me.
Yeah. I think the big part where I run into trouble is if you're trying to do like a goose hunt from the kayaks and a sled, because goose floaters are huge, man. And I don't know, I almost feel like naked with like less than like a few dozen decoys, which, there's definitely a time and place for everything. And there's times when you need less decoys, but you just can't get that many in with goose hunting. And we've even done it with like people running we ran like 3 or 4 kayaks, and it's just everyone's taking like a half dozen, So.
Yeah. Well, I know you're going up into Michigan more than you used to, but before your Michigan days, for the type of hunting that you do, when you need a boat like that, I think a good, big, sturdy canoe is probably better for you because you were going up and down those rivers. You weren't actually hunting out of them. And I mean, so for that need, a big canoe would be the best thing for you. In fact, a big canoe with a trolling motor on it would be what I would advise for what you were doing before.
Yeah.
But, you start getting up into Michigan, and I know you've got the boat, but without minus the boat, just talking about these options, where you're talking marshes and moving around in them and lots of vegetation, then your needs start to change a little bit to more of a kayak or a layout boat.
Yeah. I will say, when I went out in Michigan and hunted with Kevin, I took my kayak and they took their canoe, and it's actually a super wide canoe, and I actually got in it and paddling around. It's like paddling a bathtub, but but I couldn't believe how many decoys the Kevins brought in that canoe. Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You can get a lot of gear out in the kayak or the canoe like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had pictures of the first one we had. It was absolutely monstrous beast of a boat. I remember one time, and this is really stupid. My dad, my cousin, and I, and my dad's dog, and tons of gear got in this huge canoe, and in the dark went across this reservoir. In fact, the same reservoir I hunted late season where we found all those mallards. And I remember looking over. I'm like early 20s at this point in time. I remember looking over the side of the canoe and like looking to see how much length there is between like the lake and the top side of the boat. You're talking like 2 or 3 inches.
Yeah.
And I mean, oh my gosh, we were stupid. That was probably the stupidest thing we've ever done. Well, one of these. We've done some stupid things, but that was, I think about that and I'm just like, okay, I think that God had a big hand on both sides, like holding it, because man, it was stupid.
Man, and you're over here complaining about 12-foot death boats, and
yeah, it was every bit as dumb as going out on a big reservoir in a 12-foot John boat for sure. It was really stupid.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna let you take kind of the lead on walking through this outline here.
Okay. Well, I want to touch a little bit more on the entry point because I think there's a couple more things that need to be said. It's just an assessment of what you're going to be doing. So, number one, are you ever going to need to drag the boat 50 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards? Because if you're going to need to drag it, you're going to need something light. We don't drag all the time, but every year there's going to be 3 or 4 hunts in which we're going to drag our boats. And so for us, and that's the reason we went from layout boats to kayaks, because kayaks are, a 12-foot kayak is going to be lighter than a 12-foot layout boat traditionally, because the materials that they use. And I'm sure there's some exceptions if you know them. You can contact them. I would love to know. But like your Final Approach or your Mow Marsh, those boats are typically a lot heavier. So how much are you going to drag the boat, and are you going to be in deep water or shallow water? There's certain kayaks that are certain layout boats that you just don't ever want to go in over your head on. Are you going to be layout hunting, or are you just going to be transporting? So all of those factors go into which type of boat that you want to be in. But the next section that we're going to talk about is specifically layout hunting. And for this, it really doesn't matter if you're using a kayak or a layout boat. Just specifically laying out in those boats and kind of some tips and what you would need to be able to do that. Do you have any thoughts right off the bat on layout hunting in a kayak or a layout boat, Jordan?
Yeah, so I know our buddy Thomas does layout hunting as well from the kayak, and he just has like a self-made blind, like using kind of what's that called? Why can't I think of it? The cloth, like the fabric, potato sack. What's it called?
Just like burlap?
Burlap, yeah, burlap. He uses a lot of that. And so I guess there's a couple options using that type of material or just making something homemade. But my preferred method, seeing your canoe or your layouts and Josh as well, is going with that redhead blind and putting it on there. It just seems like that for total concealment. It has to be way better than anything you can make. Anything I've ever made like that, you're just messing around with it. It's not designed right. You're going to be screwing around trying to get covered when you're needing to be focusing on the birds coming in and getting ready to shoot. So I'm definitely all for that redhead blind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When we started layout boat hunting, we started with grass mats. Not the raffia grass, but you can buy those bundled grass mats, and we had 2 or 3 of them in each. And what we would do is we would bundle them up in a little roll and put bungee cords around them. And then when we got out to the marsh, we would lay down in the boats and pull out the raffia grass. I'm sorry, the marsh mats, the grass mats. But the problem we had with those is that with mallards, November and December mallards, with that setup, it's very, very difficult to not have your So typically what you're going to do is you're going to pull the mat up like under your armpits, and then your arms are out holding the gun. And so what you have exposed is basically from your chest to the top of your head is still exposed, and your arms are still exposed. Now, if you can force yourself to keep your entire gun and all of your body underneath that, but over time, if you're on a 4 or 5 hour hunt, it's going to be extremely difficult to force yourself to keep your entire body under those mats. And so that was the problem that we ended up having, is that late season or even mid-season mallards, that kind of concealment was just not enough. They still just were not finishing on, as now some of them did, but we just felt over and over again that the birds weren't finishing like we wanted them to finish. But I'll say that was the problem. I don't think we'd figured it out yet. That was the problem. What we thought maybe the problem was is that color scheme wasn't good enough, because those grass mats are kind of a tan, and some places they blend in, but traditionally no, they just don't. And they get extremely heavy when they get wet, which is another problem. So we went to raffia grass and we made our own basically sheets that we rolled up. So we had the same concept, but we were tying on raffia grass because it looked more realistic. You could get different colors. So we made our own mat. But we tried the same thing, and still we were having problems. If you get a couple, halfway through the season, those mats are going to just turn kind of a brown, and the weather is hard on them, and so they become flattened down and they don't look 3D. And still we had the problem with, armpits up, we're exposed, and so we still continued to feel like we weren't getting hidden enough. And so finally at that point, we realized that we had to have our entire body concealed. Now everyone's different, and you're going to get some hunts where you're on the X and they just are less weary that day. But hunt in and hunt out, our philosophy became, we have to conceal every single part of us. So that's when we went to the redhead layout blinds, which instead of like a blanket, they're doors. And so when you have doors with a slit down the middle, you can have your entire body concealed and your gun still in your hands, and you just pop up. So once we made that transition to the redhead blind attachment, the time that I knew that we had finally solved the riddle is there were 4 of us hunting, and we were on a prairie marsh. And I'm not sure about your state, but in Kansas, pintails are so difficult to actually get them to fully commit and come into the decoys. So we had no cover, and there was 4 of us, and we brushed and brushed and brushed and brushed and brushed, because we go out with raffia on our blind. So we get the redhead blind attachment. We still we use a base layer of raffia grass. I think Avery calls it killer weed. They sell it. You can buy. I think that's what it's called. But then, so that's the base layer. But then when we get to, we take whatever's there and we spend 20 to 30 minutes just adding and adding and adding and adding and adding. So there was 4 of us, and there was very little cover. Now, we weren't just in the open water. There was vegetation, but it was pretty sparse. So we collected as much as we could, and the 4 of us brushed until we couldn't brush anymore. And we landed a group of about 20 pintails right in the set. This is about all we shot this day. There's a 1 pintail limit. And when we landed those pintails on that day, when the birds in the air were wary, and there's 4 people, that was when it's like, okay, this is what you have to do. To really conceal 100% of the time, you need to be hidden. Basically 98% of you needs to be hidden. And so that was at the point when we were like, finally, okay, it's taken us years to kind of finally realize exactly what we needed to do to hide, and we accomplished it. So ever since then, that's been the ticket, that some form of either the redhead, or I know there's another product coming out soon that's going to kind of match it, or like Thomas made his own, but it's just full body concealment.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah. So next thing, on top versus inside. Like, I don't think I'd ever go with the inside on a kayak.
You wouldn't go with inside?
No, I wouldn't. I feel like the on top are just better.
Why?
They're usually built better as far as those inside too. If you ever do flip over, I mean, that's you're stuck in it unless you get flipped back up. And you hear about people getting stuck like that too, and drowning. And so on top just seems better, for that option as well. And then like putting gear on it, you can just put gear everywhere. But on top, it seems like it's higher up, and you're going to have a worse center of gravity. So, the only time that I see like that I would say go with the sit in is like, again, barrier to entry. It's better to have something nothing, and you can get like a Sun Dolphin or whatever, like it's super cheap, Walmart special, right?
But the Ascend is sit-in. So the perfect comparison.
That's not a true sit-in though.
That's what I'm. Well, okay. What are you calling a sit-in?
A sit-in kayak is because that's a hybrid. It's even on their website. It's classified as a hybrid.
Okay.
So a sit-in is the one where it has like the hole that literally goes like around your waist and your legs sit in.
Oh, okay.
That's a sit-in. A sit-on is like a bass fishing kayak where you literally sit on and you have a seat that, pretty much the exact same seat that you have on the H12s, or a similar seat to what you have on the Discovery 119s. And those are both considered. The 119s and the H12s are considered hybrids. They're in between a sit-in and a sit-on.
Okay. I was thinking like you were talking about like the H12 because you're right, it's a hybrid. And so let's talk about then, because you're absolutely right. A sit-in would be foolish to try to. There's no place to put any gear. It would, and they tip over easily. That's more for like. Let's talk about more like a hybrid. Like Josh from Outdoor Limits, he uses the Old Town. Name of that boat. Topwater, and he loves it. And then I use the H12 Ascend, which is a hybrid. So the difference is that his is sit on top, and mine has a cavity that you sit in, but not that enclosed circle. So what do you think about those two?
Yeah, no, I definitely like the hybrids. I definitely like the 119 and the H12, and those are the only two I have experience with on the hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen, sit on top ones. Like Hunter has one for bass fishing, uses it when we come out for hunting as well, getting to the spot. He actually has the H10 as well, sit on top. I think they're both Old Towns actually.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can't remember. So, yeah, I am definitely a fan of the hybrids.
Yeah. Before hunting with Josh and actually seeing his topwater, and I'm pulled more that direction after being around him. I would say I'm going to go with that hybrid every single time, and that's just by far superior. Then the reason I would have said so is I don't want my center of gravity is raised a little bit with that on top, but yet I'm not sure for some reason. So I thought that with the center of gravity being higher in like the top water, it would be less stable. But it seems like I'm not sure that Josh's topwater is less stable than the Ascend. After being around it, I'm not sure that it is.
Well, it seems like those sit on tops because they get pretty close to the water too. So you think about your center of gravity in like a hybrid, like you're saying, you're right on the water level pretty much when you're sitting in your seat, if not just like an inch or two above it. And I think it's the same way with those sit on tops because it's like the whole thing is super buoyant. So there's like no way to sink it no matter what you do on those.
Yeah.
So
totally. That's it. It's more buoyancy. It's more buoyant. Actually, it seems like almost that topwater would be harder just to, like, let's say you catch Josh in the water and way too far and you're up and you try to tip him over. It almost seems like that would be a little harder to tip even than the H12, or at least on the same playing field, which was very surprising to me. But I think buoyancy may be the factor.
Yeah. But once you add the blind, and I've never used it, but it seems like once you add the blind, it's very similar to the hybrid because the blind almost attaches the same way and everything.
Yeah. I would say that the Ascend, the hybrid, has a cargo carrying capacity advantage because you have little carved out sections. There's 3 sections, so you got a front, a back, and a middle. And it seems like you can carry gear with a hybrid than you can a sit on top.
Yeah. Yep. And that kind of goes to the canoe versus a kayak. And so I do think, I don't know. I'm a fan of all, like, trying. I'll definitely try like topwater type version at some point, and see what you can do with that as well. You just have to have some good strapping system, whether it's like bungees and holding stuff on to make sure they don't fall out, opposed to like the hybrid where you, like you said, you can have everything loose in there. So definitely pros and cons to both. But I just haven't used the sit on enough to, I guess, give a good opinion on those.
Yeah, me neither. If I was going to try a sit on top, I would get that top water from Old Town, I think.
Yeah.
Because I have been pretty impressed. So, I think we move on to length and weight, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are on it, and then you can chime in on yours, Jordan. I want a 12-foot, and I want the weight to be somewhere between 50 to 80 pounds. Now, when they tell you something weighs 80, you can count on it weighing more like 120 when you're out hunting, or at least feeling like that. So the Old Town hybrid we've got, which is, I believe, 12 foot, but much thinner than the Ascend, is so incredibly light, but less cargo space. But the Ascend is about 80 pounds, and it's light enough that I can drag it quarter mile through the woods with decoys in it if I want to. And so for me personally, I want something 12 foot because that's better for handling dogs. And then I want something that rates under 100 pounds, preferably under 80 or so under, because we're going to drag ours. What about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's gives and takes with everything. Like you said, weight and dragging it and, just everything. There's different pros and cons to all of it. So if you have less weight and less length, it's lighter. You can take it further. The Discovery 119 is actually 11 feet 8 inches, so it's just under 12 foot, and its weight is 53 pounds. So I mean, it's something you literally can carry it with one hand and walk. I mean, over time you'd probably have to switch hands and find a better way of doing it, but you could literally sling that over your shoulder and get to walking and walk as far as you need. But there, like I said, there's pros and cons to everything. So that's great. You're going on a solo hunt. You're not bringing a ton of gear. You got a sled with you to pull some decoys behind you. And then, like you said, the H12, which weighs more, it's longer, it has a higher weight capacity. So Elliot, you can put your dog in it with you. You put your gear and all that. So, but you can drag that one. But then, like Hunter, he's got to sit on top 14 foot. And like you said, it almost takes 2 people to carry it. So again, like much greater weight capacity than either one of those two. So it's like finding a happy medium, knowing what style of hunting you're going to do, what situations you're going to be in. And if you have to drag it through the woods for a quarter mile, definitely would not suggest going with a 14-footer. If you are going to hunt with a dog, I wouldn't suggest the 119. I would suggest going with something bigger, regardless of the brand that you go with. You're going to want to get something that has the weight capacity in mind for you, your dog, your gear, everything you're going with. So weight and length is just figuring out what situations you're going to be in. And I 100% would recommend, the lightest one that can handle what you're going to do.
Yeah. And we haven't talked much about, but the traditional layout boats, you can get 14 footers, and those go on a trailer. You're not dragging those anywhere. and I would never buy one for my type of hunting. But if you are in an area like Cheyenne Bottoms, or probably even some of those marshes I saw you in Michigan, you can put a longtail on those things, and they are outstanding boats for that purpose. So again, it just comes down to what is it you want to do with your boat, and I want to be able to drag mine. I'm in a fantastic situation right now where I've got an Ascend H12 and the Old Town 119. So if I'm going to drag it through the woods and not hunt out of it, then I'm going to take the Old Town. If I'm going to hunt out of my boat and put my dog in it and want a little more gear, then I've got the Ascend to go to. I know that's a luxury, but it certainly just goes to show you that especially with waterfowl hunting, there's so many different types of hunting and places to hunt, and having the right tools and equipment is so important.
Yep. Definitely agree on that. I would say on those, the ones with the mud motors, like you're talking like a layout boat with a mud motor, I think those are so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have a ton of places to use them. I mean, I definitely can think of some places I would try it out, but you know, I've thought about pulling the trigger on those in the past, but the only problem is it's like you're spending like $1,000 on something that it's like a one person solution. If you don't have buddies that are going to do it, so like what, you can use it on like 3 of your solo hunts of the year. So that's the problem for me. But I do one day I hope to hunt from one of those, drive one of those around. It'd be so much fun.
Well, and there are places in the Midwest where you have big open marshes, and those 14-foot layout boats, they'll go in like 3 inches of water. So you can get out there, and you can even get in depth with those that bigger boats with long tails can't get to. And so in the right opportunity, they are just amazing go-to boats. But like I said, Jordan, you're not taking anybody with you. So you better have a crew that's all willing to get them, because it's just going to be you and whoever else is willing to invest that same money on. And those are, when you're talking that big of a boat with a long tail, you know, that's a much higher price tag.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Move on
So
to the
paddle
next.
or trolling over paddle or, you know, I've had an amazing amount of questions like, what type of paddle should I get with my kayak, and people seem to be much more worried about this than they should be. My always answer is, go down to Walmart. Go down to Walmart. Just make sure it's a double-ended paddle. That's all you need to care about. It's a double-ended paddle, and it's not like tiny. You know, you're good. But there are some that are the ones that we got with Old Town are better, but marginally better. You can go with just any old Walmart paddle.
Yeah, I'll just say that. Excuse me. Go with a longer one, like you said. Excuse me.
Longer over shorter for sure. And then the trolling motor, we do have trolling motors for RSNs, and there are specialty places that we use them, but we will not use them more times than what we will use them. So they are good for long paddles. They don't do well in vegetation, and you have to take a big battery with you, which is heavy. So when you use them, you're really glad that you have them, or at least we are. But just the opportunity to have them, to use them, is not as frequent as what you might think, at least in our hunting. Now, when we went on our fishing trip up to Nebraska, they were just money up there. I mean, they were just fantastic up there, and the battery life on them was amazing. And so I don't think right off the top you really need one, but there's certainly a luxury to have if you have the money to have one. They do. There are times in which they really shine.
Yeah, definitely agree. So, yeah, I think you covered that one pretty good. For depth, what are your thoughts on that?
If you are going to be in really cold water over your head, you have to be really, really careful. The Old Town 119, I would not want to be in water over my head. It's just not a boat that I would want to do it in. The Ascend H12, I'm a little more comfortable. I'm not going to, now when I say be in water over your head, I would never hunt with any of these boats. Like on the whole day, I'm hunting for hours, you know, sitting in 10 foot of water. I'm just talking traveling across really deep water. So now I've knock on wood, I've never flipped my Ascend, and I've never flipped the Old Town either. But that being said, you know, if you get a half mile away and you are trying to hunt in 10 foot of water out of one of those boats and you flip over, you are in a world of hurt. So we make the general rule with the type of boats that we have, that if we're going to be in water over our head, it's only crossing across it, and we do it as little as humanly possible, and we're really careful when we do, but we try to avoid it as much as possible. So if you are going to be in water that is over your head, out duck hunting a lot, or you want to hunt out of it, then personally, kayak for layout boats is not what you want. Now those big 14 footers with those long tails on them, some of those boats are really, really sturdy instead. But as far as, anything 12 foot or under, you just want to try to avoid it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of over the head with my canoe and kayak and all that. So, definitely something to think about with safety and all that. But I've definitely pushed it to the limits.
Yeah. We've traveled across heavy water or deep water. We just try to minimize it as much as possible. Just to really be conscious about it. And if you're going to be doing it a lot, then you just want bigger. Bigger is always better.
Yep. All right. So dealing with dogs, definitely, something that we both got a lot of experience with. But I think it kind of goes back to what we're saying on the length and the size and the weight capacity. That's where you start from, and then you have some interesting innovations that you guys have done to yours. So I'll let you take it on that.
That is the main fault, I would say, of the redhead blind attachment is there's no way to deal with a dog. Some guys will tell you dogs don't scare birds, and I've seen that to be true sometimes. And some guys will say no, dogs have to be totally covered. And so I'm a little leery about, especially yellow labs, letting them just sit out. My dog Izzy, who doesn't hunt anymore, she was a really white colored yellow lab, and I just never felt comfortable with her being exposed. So even before I had a really good way to hide her, I brought camo tarps, and I just put them over top of her, and she just learned to kind of sit with a camo tarp over the top of her, and that was okay. But once you go to like the redhead blind attachment, we had to do quite a few alterations, and it involved cutting the back section out and bending conduit piping and getting some bimini fittings. In fact, on my YouTube channel, Freelance Duck Hunting, we have 2 different videos where we kind of show how we went about making this. Is basically a dog hood. And man, I just can't believe that there hasn't been like better products on the market to deal with this issue. Now, with Georgie being a black lab, my young dog, I do think you can get away more with a black lab than you can a yellow because, especially on a sunny day where you've got lots of shadows, a black dog is much harder to pick up their facial features and their movements. So, but with that blind attachment, we basically just created a hood, and it's right behind us, and the dog sits right under that hood, and it takes some training, and the dog is going to be exiting over your body a lot of times. And you better have the dog trained because there's been multiple times with my dad's dog Candy and with Izzy where I come up to shoot and the dog's so excited that right before you pull the trigger, you get bumped from behind and whiff. But building yourself some form of little hood for them to go over is the way that we've done it, and it's been a very productive system. We've been using that in different ways for the past 5 or 6 years probably. So. And if you don't have a dog, no worries at all. But yeah, that's how we deal with the dog on it.
Yeah, as far as on YouTube and everything like that, I would say like you and your channel are like the authority on like layout, hunting with the blind and all that. And you guys have gone through so much troubleshooting and different styles and figuring it out. I mean, you really got it down to a science. And I mean, there's no time when you don't see on a forum people start talking about the layout, boat hunting, or asking about certain boats or blinds, and one of your videos gets linked in there, and so you definitely know what you're doing on that.
Well, it's been interesting because this is the 6th year of the channel, and really a lot of this progression happened as the channel evolved. So season 1, we were using Carson's Puddler layout boats and just with basic mat system. And progressing from there right up to the Ascends with the redhead blind attachment. So the life of the channel has been the biggest progression that we've gone through, and we've tried multiple different things on the videos. So, and we don't lay out. I mean, some years we may only lay out 2 or 3 times. Some years we may lay out 7 or 8 times. I'm never more than 33% of the time. But so it has the videos. The hunting videos came right at the time really where we were evolving. with everything we were doing. So it was kind of lucky timing, really. And I'm going to actually do a video here in the next couple of weeks, and specifically on the H12 versus the 119. And I really should go back and do another video on just the blind and the dog attachments. Probably time to do another one of those, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of the last thing, talking about the mechanics of actually hunting from it, and that's one thing I'm honestly a little leery about. I worry about timing and all that. It's just the same as, like, if you look at comparing hunting from an A-frame to a layout, it's definitely going to be a little bit harder. But it's kind of, we've talked about this before, sometimes when you're a natural blind, if you're sitting right on the edge of the water in the brush and the birds are flaring at 30 yards, well, the same thing can happen out, while you're on the water there, and having the layout boat kind of gives you that concealment you need to finish them completely. And so the same way that if you're on the edge and you need to move back 15 yards to get the birds finishing, and then you're shooting them at 15 yards opposed to sitting right on the edge and shooting flaring birds at 25 or 30, it's a net positive. So even though it's going to be harder for the timing, if you're finishing the birds all the way, having that layout and all that, then, you can deal with the timing and the shooting. So what are your thoughts on that, Elliot?
Well, first of all, if you're laying out, the worst, whether this is on the ground, because I'll tell you, I have been through horrible shooting slumps because I've been laying on my back, whether it's on the ground or in water. In fact, I've got one video from season 2 where it's called The Confessional, where I was on like a 3 for 36 slump out of my layout boat. I mean, it was just terrible. We were having mallards come and hover, and I was missing them. And at that time, we had hoods over our head, and then we had those tarps. So what I had to do, you have to actually grab the hood with your right hand, flip it back, and then do a sit up. That is the absolute worst type of scenario. And there's ground blinds. In fact, I still have one that is the same way, where you lay on it and you have the hood over, and you actually have to flip the hood up with one hand, then go back to your gun. Worst possible scenario for trying to kill a bird. It's just too much motion that you have to do before you pull the trigger. So anytime that you're laying out, you want doors where you can do a sit up without having to remove anything from your face cover. But the main thing is your timing. You need to call your shot about, I don't know, like 1001 sooner, because when you can stand up and shoot, or shoot off your seat without standing up much quicker, and you can pull up your gun much quicker than if you are doing a sit up. When you do a sit up, even when you pull the trigger, if you think about it, if you're shooting properly, your weight is going to be on your front foot when you pull the trigger. You don't want your weight on your back feet. And that's one problem I had with my little boys. They were always shooting off their back foot. So you want to kind of lean over the gun a little bit and have your weight on your front foot. Well, if you're doing a sit up, that's never going to be the feel for you, because it's just as you sit up, you can't get into that same kind of over the top of a stance. So when you're pulling the trigger, your torso is going to be a little bit angled back a little bit. And then also, as you're doing the sit up, if you're wearing a lot of clothing, the clothes tend to bunch upwards as you sit up, especially if you have a little bit of a belly. Your clothes will kind of bunch upwards, so now you've got more material on your shoulder. So as you shoulder that gun, it gets caught in that fabric a lot more often as well. So you've got multiple factors that are going to create a miss. You've got the angle of your torso, you've got the clothing, you've got the timing, and back to the timing. I'm not sure I fleshed that out quite well enough. If you call your shots at the same time out of a layout as you do in an A-frame, then when you pull the trigger, the bird's going to be farther away from you or farther in than what you were anticipating. So the best thing that you can do is get your layout out during off season and try to shoot blue rock out of it. If you're going to need your own thrower, get the boat out there, lay down, which I did. I mean, I did many things to try to break the curse of my horrible shooting out of a layout boat. But That's one thing that you can do. But the real thing that broke it for me, and I talked about this many times before, is just multiple times getting into your garage or wherever, laying in your boat, and quickly sitting up and targeting something in your garage and change it around. Practice, see a can of paint, practice popping up and putting it right on it. Even put on some extra clothing, But it's that repetition of sitting up and shouldering the gun quickly, sitting up and shouldering the gun quickly. The timing thing will work itself out, because as you make mistakes, you'll start to figure it out a little bit, because it is definitely a different shot call than when you're not laying down. But it's the sitting up and shouldering the gun at the same time. It's something that needs to be done with repetition. And until I did that, and I always give a shout out to the Average Waterfowlers, who were an old school waterfowl podcast. That's where I got that from them. And once I did that multiple times, where I just set up and pointed, my shooting greatly improved out of a layout. But it's a whole different animal coming up off your back like that and getting on a bird.
Would you say that one of the hidden bonuses to layout hunting is that you can more easily sky bust because you're already looking straight up?
Yeah, you don't even have to do a sit-up to do that. Or you can just blame it on your timing. Oh, man, my timing was so bad I had to sky bust. Well, pass shooting is something you really shouldn't. Pass shooting at 35 to 50 yards is something you shouldn't try to lay out, because it's just, pass shooting is so hard. Teal hunting, early season teal, you won't see us in a layout boat either, because shooting teal out of a layout boat as they're coming to the decoys is something that, man, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Awesome. Well, I think a good way to wrap this up is, if you're planning to layout hunt, right now is a good time to start your 100 sit-up a day challenge all the way till season, so that you're quick out of the gates.
Yeah, that's right. Get the tummy reduced in size and those muscles strengthened, which is something I could probably work on myself.
Oh, yeah. Same here.
I know I could work on it. Not probably.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know. I think this is a pretty good place to wrap up. What do you think, Elliot?
Yeah, I think so. I hope there's nothing that we missed. If we did miss anything, you can get over there to Fellowship of the Duck Guns and ask. Feel free to message us, either Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Fellowship of the Duck Guns on Facebook, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Or the best place is Fellowship of the Duck Guns, because then multiple people can answer it. But we'd happy to take this conversation over there.
Awesome. Definitely agree on that. I'm looking forward to getting out there, and I got my redhead blind. I got Dad. He's got his redhead blind as well. So I'll be geared up, ready to go. He will too, and so I'll have a partner this year to try out the layout hunting with. Definitely looking forward to that. So, anyways, guys, thanks again for tuning in for another episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, all about the kayaks, the canoes, the layouts. I'm pumped for season, guys. It's like T-minus 45 days, so stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Those of you on YouTube, thank you so much for coming. I get a shout out to the Alaskan Viking for your super chat, and Matt tease you. Thank you so much for your super chat as well. It's certainly appreciated, man. And I do want to answer Duckalope Outdoors question real quick that I thought I put on there. There is a big difference between the H12 and the Old Town 119 as far as speed. The Old Town is lightning fast. And if I'm going fishing, I'm taking the Old Town. It's fast, it's nimble, it's light. It's an excellent boat, and I would advise it to anyone, as long as the criteria that we talked about during the podcast are met, as far as what its disadvantages are. But it is a lightning fast little boat.
Awesome.
Timmy Cochran, woo! Thanks, Tim.
Alrighty. Anything else, or you want me to kick off that live stream?
I think I'm good. We've been on together now for 4 hours straight, and I think my wife is probably like, "Are we gonna watch Little House on the Prairie or not?"
She's probably getting a little jealous.
So, she's getting a little jealous of my crush on Carolyn from Little House on the Prairie, and I'm getting a little jealous on her crush on Charles. You don't know who they are. It's Ma and Pa.
Yeah.
It's still an every night thing, man. It's going strong. We're in season 4.
Jeez.
Halfway through.
Well, I don't know what you're gonna do when it ends.
I cry. Penelope, my little daughter, said to me, we're sitting eating at dinner, and she said, "So let me ask you a question, Elliot." It's my stepdaughter. She calls me Elliot. She's like, if you had to either or skip a season of duck hunting and get to watch, she calls it Ma and Pa, or go duck hunting for a whole year and never get to watch an episode again, what would you pick? I'm like, duck hunting. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to not duck hunt to watch Little House on the Prairie. I love the show, but come on.
Yeah.
Rambling now, aren't I?